We're in Sarnath, a few kilometers north of Varanasi, and we're in another remarkable place in world history. Sarnath is one of the most important sites of Buddhism. Buddhism is one of the great religious and philosophical traditions of the whole world. It's estimated that there are around 500 million Buddhists, mainly in Asia, but in fact in all parts of the world. It makes Buddhism the fourth most populous religion of the world, following Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and then Buddhism. We're actually standing in front of a great Buddhist stupa. A stupa is a great mound, a place for meditation, a place for holy relics, a place where pilgrims circle the stupa. The circumambulation is a path of veneration and a path of meditation for the followers. But also standing in front of me is another central temple, the Jain temple of another great religion that has part of its foundations in this very place. So in Varanasi and its environs, we have three great religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, that all find some of their most holy places right here. Now, Buddha, of course, is a historical figure, has the name Siddhartha Gautama. While there are questions by historians and scholars about precisely the details of his life, it is said that he was born to a kind of royalty in Lumbini, a city in the Indo-Gangetic Plain that is now in Nepal. And as a young man, he delighted in the pleasures of nobility, in hunting and feasting, sensual pleasures. And he found, however, that this still left him unfulfilled. And he went out from the palace walls and he observed suffering, dukkha. And he started to ponder very deeply, what is the nature of this suffering? Why is there suffering? And he began on a path of exploration, experimentation, one might say, and enlightenment. He wondered whether it was the excessive devotion to pleasures that was the source of his own sadness and the source of the suffering. For many years, he experimented with an ascetic life, a life of denial. He found that that did not give satisfaction of the sort that he was seeking. Neither the great pleasures of palace life nor the asceticism, which was its opposite, were to him an explanation of dukkha, of suffering, nor a path away from the suffering. He continued to reflect, and at age 35, according to Buddhist tradition, he sat under a Bodhi tree, a ficus or fig tree, in what is today's Bodh Gaya, another city on the Ganges River, and he received enlightenment. He understood the path away from dukkha, away from suffering, that it was not a matter of pleasure on the one side or asceticism and denial on the other side, but inner transformation. He invented, he conceived, he received the enlightenment of a kind of virtue ethics. The idea of virtue ethics is that the way to happiness and well-being, however defined, is an inner transformation. It is not a matter of the material life, whether in the riches or in the opposite, in its denial, but in the building of the inner truths and the inner character, the virtues. And after enlightenment at Bodh Gaya, he came here to Sarnath, a wondrous place. And even as we experience Sarnath today, we see pilgrims from all over Asia, from India, from Sri Lanka, from countries in East Asia that are coming here to find their path to enlightenment, to venerate Buddha, and to learn the truths that he taught. After enlightenment, he came to Sarnath with his first followers, his Sangha, his disciples, and he lectured them on the path to enlightenment. So we can think of this place for Buddhists as if we were standing where Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount in Galilee. For Buddhists, this is the place where that great sermon, that great teaching was given. And what did he teach? Of course, there is so much to say, but we can say that he taught 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path to enlightenment. The 4 noble truths start first with the idea of suffering itself, dukkha. The first truth is that the source of that suffering must be understood, it must be sought. The second noble truth is that that suffering comes from craving, comes from uncontrolled desires, comes from the lack of virtue, the lack of the self-development to control the cravings, to control the desires, to control the wants, and therefore to face the disappointments. The third of the 4 noble truths is that there is a way out of dukkha, a way out of the suffering. And the fourth of the noble truths is that the Eightfold Path that Buddha identified is the path to enlightenment. What Buddha taught obviously has its deep connections with the Hindu philosophy of the time. This was a Hindu culture and a Hindu society. And the Hindu teachers and scholars and ethicists of the Upanishads, of the Bhagavad Gita, were also exploring the virtue ethics that could lead to the escape from suffering. In the Hindu tradition, which has its obvious close links with Buddhism, the question for the Hindus was how to escape samsara, the endless cycles of life and death and all the suffering attendant on that, how to find moksha, release from samsara. For Buddhism, the term is nirvana, how to find nirvana, also the escape from dukkha, from the suffering in the world. And Buddha taught that it is in ourselves, in both a virtue ethics and remarkably a kind of mind training. We now call it mindfulness, meditation, also obviously with its Hindu roots of yoga. But the idea is that the way to nirvana is both through the cultivation of the right actions and the cultivation of the mind and a proper understanding of reality. These 8 actions, or the 8 rightful path to nirvana, includes the right view of reality, the right resolve, the right speech, not to tell lies, not to blaspheme, to control one's speech, the right conduct, how to behave with other people, the right livelihood, how to follow one's course in life, the right effort, the spirit in which to conduct one's life. The right mindfulness and the right awareness, helped by meditation, helped by a deep psychology that Buddha first taught and that Buddhism then cultivated and carried forward for the next 2,500 years. Sarnath is where he taught. The fourth holy site of Buddha is after his death, where he was released, where he reached nirvana. And these four sites, including this third site where his first disciples came, his Sangha, are the great holy sites of Buddhism.